All right, let's get to it. All right, guys, in this video today, we're going to be making the keeper, and that is this little piece right here that the belt tail is going to go through, right? Just like that. So that's going to involve us cutting a piece to size. So when you cut your initial strap, your belt strap, you had a piece left over most likely, just like this. So I've saved that piece, I've skived it down, so I've reduced the thickness a fair bit, and you can kind of go just sort of by what feels right, but I've skived it down so that I'm at about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna make a keeper that is 1 inch wide. Okay, so 1 inch wide is the same width as my ruler happens to be. For this width of belt, I kind of like a fairly chunky looking keeper, but you guys can sort of do whatever you want with that. So I'm just going to cut a strip. Okay, there we go. So there's that. Now I'm going to figure out how long this needs to be. So I'm going to wrap my belt around for the tail, and I want it to hold the tail and this first part. Okay, so my joint is going to be halfway. I'm going to wrap this around nice and snug. Okay, like so. And I'm going to put a mark right where these butt together. Okay, so that's where my mark's going to be. Now we're just going to cut that square off. Okay, now we have to stitch this. So we're going to stitch this with a butt joint, which means these two ends come together just like that. And we're going to use our pricking iron for that. Nice and centered from edge to edge, and about 1/8 of an inch or a small 1/8 of an inch back from the edge. And we're going to come through that. Okay, make sure it goes all the way through. Flip it around. Same thing on the other side. Okay, so now we're going to stitch those together. We're going to take 2 needles. Got some waxed nylon thread. When we're stitching something like this, you always want to take about 6 times the length of the stitch for your thread. That's about what it's going to take. Okay, and we're not tying a knot here. We're just having the thread loop through, pull it out a little bit, and then just fold it back and give it a little twist so the wax kind of holds it just like that. Okay, so now we're going to go down through the first thread, or through the first hole. We kind of want about center. We're going to go down through the opposite hole. We're going to pull those tight. Okay, then we're going to come back up through, from crossing over from the back side. So it's going to look like an X on the bottom and just straight lines on the top. And down through. And now I'm going to come across with this one. I'm going to come up through the same hole I just came down. You can be pretty tight with this. And back down through. So we're actually going to do sort of a double stitch here. There we go. Now it's going to stay in place a little nicer for me. So we're going to cross over, come up. And this one, I'm crossing over because I've come down through this hole, so I'm going to cross over underneath and come up. And down through. And this one goes down through. Now we're going to pull it nice and tight. And we'll do our last stitch, crossing over underneath, coming up. Crossing over underneath and coming up. Pull it tight. Okay. There we go. So now we're going to take our needles out, just pull those out, make sure the needles go back into the vial. We don't want to lose those. And we're going to take our 2 thread tails and we're just going to do a double knot. Nice and tight. One more. Nothing fancy here. Just a tight double knot. We're going to cut the tails off. We're just going to take a lighter and singe those ends. Just like that. Okay, now that knot's not going anywhere. Now our keeper is done. Let's double check and make sure that it fits. You guys can see underneath, it looks like an X on the back because we had to cross over at some point, and then the top looks like this. And this is going to be a hidden stitch in this case anyway, so it's not that big a deal. And let's double check and see if it fits. There we go. So that is how it's going to be. All right, and this is actually, it might seem like a tight fit right now, but this is veg tan leather, and veg tan leather is responds really well to wet molding. And we're actually going to wet this keeper down, and we're going to hold it in this position overnight, and it's going to kind of ease itself and mold it into this position, and it's going to stay nice and crisp as this one does here. You guys can sort of see how sort of rigid and stiff this thing has stayed, and it keeps its form. Okay, so that is the construction of our belt keeper.